What's up, everyone? This is Megan Sullivan, your database editor here at IGN and RPG expert. Speaking of RPGs, I'm here with the wonderful Josh Sawyer, project director on the upcoming Obsidian RPG, Pillars of Eternity. Josh, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so what are we looking at? What are we doing today?
We're going to be looking at the beginning of the game, and that includes character creation and goes through a couple of wilderness environments and our starting dungeon.
That sounds awesome. All right, let's get started. So, Maestro, please. Excellent. We've got a three-man operation going here. We actually also have Brandon Adler, the executive producer for the game. Very exciting. Ooh. I like that very mysterious beginning.
Is it too spooky for you?
No, not at all.
All
It's
right.
very mysterious and intriguing.
Mission accomplished. So the game takes place in a new setting that we developed at Obsidian called a world called Aora. And you're in a part of the world called the Eastern Reach, and it's an area that's being heavily colonized. It has lots of old, actually ancient ruins in them that people love to plunder for their goodies. And it's very dangerous, though, because the locals regard them as sacred, and they'll attack anyone who trespasses. So you come as part of a caravan that's going into the Eastern Reach, and you're going into some dangerous territory when the caravan master calls a halt to the caravan for the night. So that's kind of the setup, the introduction to how your character comes into this environment. The player's free to define a lot of elements about their character, and that's why we go into character creation.
All right, well, I love character creation, so let's make a kick-ass character. All right, so what have we got here?
So, as is very common in Obsidian RPGs, and especially the Infinity Engine games, you can create a variety of different characters. Of course, you can create male or female characters. You can create characters that are a number of different races. So the Kickstarter campaign, during it, the backers backed a total of 6 races, core races. So we have humans, traditional dwarves, and elves. We also have some new races. We have Almawa, which are a large semi-aquatic race, and then the Orlans, who are small, furry, long-eared, kind of halfling and gnome replacements. Yes. And then the godlike, who are kind of terrifying. What you're seeing there, that is not a helmet. That is actually growing out of his head.
Wow.
The godlike are either blessed or cursed, depending on who you ask, by the gods. And they usually have a very, very strange appearance that people react very strongly to.
So do you have a preference about which character you think we should go with today?
Well, we're going to look at the humans for now.
All right.
Classic.
Can't go wrong. Humans are the best.
So humans, all the races have different ethnicities that you can pick from. In the case of humans, there are meadow humans, the ocean humans who are a little more dark-skinned, the savanna humans. They really don't have a large effect on gameplay. It's mostly a cosmetic variation. But a lot of players like to have the customization to pick the different appearances.
I love it. I spend literally hours doing character creation because it's your avatar, right? And an RPG, it's kind of you.
And in the game, you normally don't see the character this large, but even so, it's nice to actually get into the idea of what your character looks like before you get in game.
All right. Now, how detailed can I get? I see a lot of awesome things here. I see different classes.
Yeah, so you can
cool
pick
outfits.
the different classes. We have 11 classes: the traditional fighter, wizard, rogue, and wizard, but we can also have our chanters and our ciphers, which are a little more unusual classes we've developed from scratch. Chanters are kind of like bards. Ciphers are like psionicists, kind of like mental spellcasters. And we're going to go with the barbarian today, which is very traditional but very fun class to play. They do great area of effect damage and are pretty tough.
All right.
And of course, we have attributes in the game. Again, very traditional. 6 is the number that our fans... It's funny to see them discuss it because they really seem to like having 6 attributes. So we tried to accommodate them. We also tried to make sure, though, that when we built this game, that a lot of RPGs, sometimes there are dump stats for certain classes,
right.
And we wanted to make sure that no matter what sort of a character you build with these attributes, it'll work with your class. So,
all right. So if I'm a beginner, let's say I've never played a CRPG before, which attributes would you recommend for a beginner? Like if I'm a human and I'm a barbarian, which way would you?
Oh, well, if you like this sort of stereotypical barbarian, a high might and constitution are really good because a high might is going to do a lot more damage, and a high constitution will give you a higher health and endurance in the game. Right. What Brandon is doing is a little less traditional. He has a high intellect, which might seem strange for a barbarian, but here's the thing. Intellect affects the duration of all your abilities, and it affects the area of effect of all your abilities. Because barbarians hit an AoE, their AoEs get larger with a higher intellect, and because they have abilities like Frenzy and Wild Sprint, the durations go up based on having a high intellect.
Okay, so Frenzy meaning like I can just
go berserk.
Go completely berserk on my enemies. What is so I can see the benefit. What would be the disadvantage of doing that?
Of having a high intellect?
No, of going berserk.
If going berserk? Well, it's a short duration effect. Your defense goes down while it's active, so you can take more damage more quickly. But it's one of the special abilities that Barbarian has. All classes have their own special limited use abilities, and that's one of the key features of the Barbarian.
All right, now we have different cultures. What is that about?
So the cultures, partially this is for role-playing. It'll come up in conversation every once in a while. It sort of talk about where you're from, or people will react to where you're from. It also affects your starting gear. Obviously, you can change your gear out throughout the course of the game, but a lot of people, again, like to get into the idea of what their character looks like very early. So these different cultures have different starting gears and different appearances. We're going to go with the Edir, which is sort of the, like the main culture that colonized this area.
Right, and so throughout the game, different characters will react differently from you being there. Some will be friendly, some will be hostile.
Yeah, friendly, or they'll just have some you can share or some information that you might know from being from that culture.
Okay.
You can also pick your background. Again, this is almost purely role playing. This is just to pick what your background was, where you came from. It comes up early on in the game. Kalisha, one of the NPCs, asks you about where you came from, what your background was, and you can elaborate on the choices that you make in character creation. In this case, we're going to choose a slave. So we're an Adiran slave barbarian.
That sounds great. That sounds fantastic. This is somebody who is fought for his freedom and has like a really tough
and you actually
background.
Get to define exactly how you got to where you are, which is, people love doing that when they're playing role-playing games.
Absolutely.
So of course you can define all your portraits. Also, you'll be able to import portraits. A lot of players love doing this.
I like that mischievous grin on his face.
Yes, that was something I specifically requested. The slight mischievous grin. So you can pick from any of these portraits, or you can import your own, which a lot of people really love doing.
Right.
And then, of course, you can pick your custom colors. When your character gets down to being only an inch tall, having distinctive colors on your clothing can sometimes be very important.
Going for the Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, you can go pretty extreme, or you can go fairly subdued with it. It's up to you.
Why be subdued when you can do something wild and crazy?
Well, it's all. There you go. There's your choice. You can be a crazy dude, and of course, you can customize your skin, hair colors. You can pick different facial hairs, heads, and different hairstyles and stuff like that. So. Again, a lot of people want to define all these things about their character, so we try to give them a lot of options. And you can pick your voice set so that when players respond to commands and things like that, you hear the feedback from the character that you selected.
Right. I wonder how many lines of dialogue it took to just do everything.
Everything? I can't remember. The voice sets are typically fairly beefy, but we try to keep it under control. We want to have it be robust but not crazy. So what I was saying before is you're coming into this... as part of this caravan, you're coming into the Eastern Reach, and the caravan master has called a halt to the caravan for the night. You wind up near these ruins, but the caravan master says right away, you guys got to be really careful. Do not go into the ruins. The locals are really protective of them. They regard them as sacred, and they will kill you for going into them. Your character, though, kind of has a slight sickness, something called the rumbling rot.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it's not. It's not too bad, but Odema says, you should probably take care of it. So he sends you with another member of the caravan, a fighter named Kalisha, to go get the berries.
All right.
He needs to find some spring berries. Watch that he doesn't drop dead.
No promises.
That's reassuring.
Yep. Yeah, so Kalisha's pretty practical. She's like, well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
We're
good
in
luck
a
to you,
dangerous area.
dude. You're going to probably die.
So you start off now, and you have your character, the barbarian, who's in the left position, and then Kalisha, who's a fighter. So these are two melee-oriented characters, but they actually play fairly differently. The fighter is very good at defensive play. They can withstand a lot of damage. They heal on their own. They have very high defensive stats, and they can hold a line very well. They can prevent people from moving around them. The barbarian is very focused on doing area of effect damage. They also have things to do like wild sprint, where they can do a burst of speed very quickly. They're more of a high maintenance but high damage character, which is pretty fun. So, of course, you have a lot of options when you start the game to pick your background and get different gear. But if you don't like that, or if you want to augment your armory, you can go and buy stuff from Hayden right away, that merchant. So right now we're going to go dual-wielding axes, which is always fun. And then we also have a pike. And each of these weapon types has a different sort of cool attribute to it. Battle axes do a lot of critical damage, and then the pike has increased range. So it's pretty fun to attack from the back rank behind another character, because it kind of protects you from a lot of harm that way. And so we're going to get the spring berries. Here's Sparfle. Sparfle was sent to go get the water. He's kind of known as a lazy guy in the camp.
He looks lazy.
Yeah, so he's just going to have a smoke by the tree. He's like, yeah, I'll get the water. It's not going anywhere. So, because this is an Infinity Engine-inspired game, we tried to have combat that was very much like the old games. It's a real-time with pause combat system. So right now we're pausing to issue commands. Kalisha is going to try to intercept these wolves, and then we're going to have our barbarian rush up and attack kind of from the back rank behind her with his pike. Kalisha got knocked down. Wolves are... one of their special attacks is a knockdown. Thankfully,
okay.
you can see Kalisha's taking damage, but she's slowly healing it over time. That's one of the, again, the properties that'll fight her. Yeah. Holy cow. Be careful when you run away, though. So one of the things is, if you run away from enemies, they actually get disengagement attacks against you.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
Kalisha got whacked a couple times on the way
Yeah, she did.
out.
That was brutal.
Yes.
All right, so there's definitely some, you can't just retreat whenever you feel like it. There does have to be some strategic retreat.
Yeah, and there's different classes sometimes have abilities for avoiding engagement. Like rogues have something called escape that lets them kind of jump away really quickly. So again, it's a limited use ability. So we found the spring berries that we need, and Kalisha used this as an opportunity to ask you about your background. So the choices that you made early on, you can elaborate on. It'll fill out your biography, and you can sort of like, again, just define where you're from and what you're doing in this area.
Right. Now, there are no romances in this game, right? Like, I
No
can't date her.
romances. A lot of our backers really want romances. They're very time-consuming and involved to do, and we just didn't think that with the number of companions we wanted to do that we could do them, you know, to the level of quality they needed to be. So we have a bunch of companions in the game. They have really cool dialogues. They're really cool characters.
How many companions do you get total?
The backers backed 8 total companions, and then if you don't like the companions, or if you just want to make some characters of your own, you can also use what's called the Adventurers Hall to pay for building new companions.
Oh, okay.
And those are just they're kind of just characters that you make like in Icewind Dale,
right?
And they can join your party. And that way, if you want to make a party of all wizards or all fighters or something really wacky, you can do that. So we went to find Sparful, but he's not here. He left his water skin behind, so we're just going to collect water on our own. And what you're seeing here is what we call a scripted interaction.
Right.
These are little illustrated story moments. They allow us to sort of tell the story from a different perspective than you get in an isometric game. Little cool sound effects and stuff like that. In this case, we fill up the water. Sparful comes out of the forest. He seems like he's breathing heavily. Doesn't look very good. He doesn't look very good because he has an arrow in his back.
I probably wouldn't feel too hot.
That's very bad. So the problem is that he wandered too close to the ruins, and so the locals, the Glonfothans, who regard the ruins as sacred, they're now decided they're going to kill everyone who's come through here in the caravan.
Uh-oh, is that one of the locals?
Yep, all these guys that are attacking you, they are local Glonfothans, and they're protectors of the ruins.
Yes? Very well.
Oh, did you use your knockdowns already? So a lot of the abilities you have, like the knockdown or the wild sprint, those are usually restricted to being either per encounter or per rest abilities. So some of them you can use in every fight, and some of them you have to rest to get them back.
Okay.
And now we can hear there's fighting happening back at the camp because the locals are very, very mad.
Going.
In this fight here, I'm going to show off another ability, which is the Barbarian's Wild Sprint. So Kalisha's going to go up front. She's going to draw these guys forward. And then we're going to use the Wild Sprint for a burst of speed.
Oh, wow.
So the Barbarian moves very, very fast. And also, it's very difficult to interrupt the Barbarian when he's running like that.
Okay.
So it's a very useful ability, but you can only use it a certain number of times per rest.
Okay, so in this case, it was a good thing to use it against the ranged
The Ranger,
fighter.
yeah. You want to run up and start to take him out as quickly as you can.
Oh, God,
Should probably switch over to the battle axes for maximum carnage.
Yeah.
Well, he's gone.
Yep.
But now the battle axes are out for the next fight. So we get back to the camp here, and there's been a massacre. All the locals have come in and killed most of the members of the caravan.
Oh, man.
But there's one guy left who is Hayden. He's the guy who sold you your gear before. He's being held hostage by this Glonfothan leader. He's really, really mad. He's basically saying, throw it on your weapons. You're a trespasser. If you don't throw him down, we're going to kill this guy. So you have a lot of different options for how you want to deal with them. Something I want to call attention to is that number 2 option there, that lore option.
Right.
That's basically being darkened out because you don't qualify to use it. So you get a lot of options that are triggered by your stats in the game. And if you don't qualify for them, you have the option to see like, oh, there's something here. If you built your character a little bit differently, you get different options here.
So is that a way of hinting that, like, if you go back and replay the game and you have the right attributes, that'll actually unlock, and then you can see what that is?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just showing, like, yeah, there are different ways that you can play the game, different ways you can build your character. So also another thing I want to call attention to are the personalities listed to the right of all these options. Those personalities are used to build your reputation in the game. So if you pick honest responses, you start building a reputation as being very honest. Diplomatic, diplomatic. And then over the course of the game, different characters will respond to you based on the reputations that you build. So it's trying to reinforce the idea that the choices you make go beyond the immediate consequences of the conversation. They also can influence how people view you in the future.
Right. So if I choose like a very passionate answer, will I get very passionate in reply, or people will recoil and be like, "What's wrong?"
Well, no,
with you?
you come to be known as a very passionate person.
Okay.
So some people will think that that's very cool. Other people say like, no, I need someone who's calm and cool and collected, so I don't want to deal with you. So sometimes it influences how you play through quests, or it can open up certain things in quests.
Now, are there certain quests that are locked if I'm the wrong race or the wrong class?
No, we try not to lock that off. What we try to do is sometimes we'll block one way through it or open up a way through it. So we don't want to really cut out content for people. We want to provide challenges or neat ways through it. So for example, if you're passionate, that might block you off or allow you a neat way through a quest, but it's never going to actually prevent you from doing something.
Okay, so I would just have to find a different way around it. All
so
right.
in this case, we have a high might, and so we're going to try to intimidate this guy. But this guy is a fanatic, so it doesn't really work. Now, the thing is, even though we unlocked that ability or that dialogue option because of your high attribute, that doesn't mean it's the right choice. So something, a trap we've kind of fallen into in the past is when you see that something's unlocked, that means it's a good response and you should always pick it.
Right.
That's not really the case in Pillars of Eternity. You still have to think about the context. And in this case, the guy reacted very badly, and
yes,
so
he did.
He's attacking Hayden. Hayden is now in our party, though. He's a rogue. Rogues are very good at doing single target damage. Or are you going to go berserk with the... Oh, okay. So yeah, now the barbarian is attacking very, very quickly because he frenzied. Oh, it already wore off.
But the audience saw it.
Yeah. So you defeated the Glonfothan leader, but he's not too phased because he can sense that, well, what he thinks is divine retribution is coming, and that divine retribution takes the form of a bioek. And a bioek is what the locals call, well, they call it a bioek, but it's a soul wind. A soul wind is this magical phenomenon that actually tears the souls out of people's bodies.
Wow.
So you can see them flying away right now. Very, very bad. And so Odema, who is dying on the ground, said, you guys got to get inside, run away, hide in the ruins. So as you're rushing inside and trying to get away, one of the defenders who's not quite dead, he drags Hayden down, and he's trying to hold him down and basically get him killed in the bioek. So depending on your class and the equipment that you have different ways to try to deal with this situation. In this case, we have a weapon, we can throw it. So we're going to try to throw our weapon at the attacker. We can also just allow Hayden to get free on his own. That probably is not going to have very good consequences. So we're going to help him out. Throwing your weapon actually means you do lose your weapon, though. So there are, again, consequences to the choices that you make.
Right.
So
but I can just buy it back, right?
What's that?
Right?
Well, Hayden abandoned the store unless you want to go back out into the bioek and go
Can
through
I
his
come
loot.
at people with my fist, or can you not fist fight in the game? Like if you have a weapon,
you can use your bare fists if you want.
Okay, cool.
They're not very effective unless you're a monk. Monks are very good with their bare fists. So now you're inside the ruins. Kalicia's pretty worried because she's worried that more people are going to come after you. Unfortunately, Hayden is very badly wounded. Because of the way the conversation went, he's been injured. He actually has bruised ribs there. So the bruised ribs is a long-term injury that I'll have to rest to overcome. And also because I lost my weapon, I have to equip a new... I don't really want to attack with axe and fist. So we're going to pull a sword back in there.
I don't know, it sounds like an awesome combination to me.
So Hayden is really tired. He really wants to rest. Kalicia says, we gotta find another way out of here right now. So the problem that you have here is that Hayden really needs to rest. He has that injury. Kalicia says there's no way that we can rest in here. We have to leave immediately. So if you don't rest, Hayden maintains that wound until you get out. If you do rest, Kalicia will leave you. She'll actually abandon the party while you're resting.
So there really is consequences.
Yeah, so there are
to
consequences to making these choices that one character really does not want you to do.
Okay, and now when you have a long-term injury, is there a way later in the game to get potions or anything that can heal that?
You can rest. Resting will always get rid of those long-term injuries. Healing magic won't get rid of it. It's basically rest is the cure-all for all of these really negative status effects. So you have your short-term healing and your long-term healing, and resting is what gets back your long-term healing. So here you see camping supplies. Those are used to rest. The hammer and chisel is a tool that you can use in conversations and scripted interactions in very specific contexts. Same with these flint and tinders that we're finding. Those can be used in certain certain special interactions.
Is there crafting in this game?
Yeah, we have a big crafting system. You can use it to make food, potions, scrolls. You can also use it to enchant weapons and armor. So it's very flexible. You can even enchant unique weapons that you find, which is pretty cool.
All right, now we're still trying to find our way out of here, right?
You're still trying to find our way out. And so what I was actually going to say before about the long-term and short-term healing is when your characters get into combat and they take some damage, you'll see the red come over their portrait. That's what's called stamina. We're probably going to change the name to endurance, but that's short-term damage.
Yeah.
If you get knocked out, it's not that big of a deal, but you're also taking full health damage at the same time. That's the green bar on the left side of the portrait. If that green bar goes down to 0, then you're actually killed. In this case, this little Skulder guy just did a little sonic scream, and he stunned the party.
I see that.
Even these little critters, these early critters, have a lot of special abilities. Like the Skulder scream, the wolf can knock you down. So we want to make them interesting and have their little tactical things they can do. So you find out, here's some loot on a dead explorer. You find an Ingwithan relief gem, some armor, and another flint and tinder. Again, when you find these little goodies like flint and tinders or hammers and chisels, every time you use them in a scripted interaction, they're actually consumed. So the more you find of them, the more uses you can get out of them.
Now we have some symbols on the floor
Yes.
there. What's that?
This is a classic Infinity Engine style floor puzzle. So there are a number of ways that you can bypass this puzzle. You can either try to Hayden is going to try to detect the traps himself, so he can start to detect them and try to disarm them. Depending on his skill, he can go a certain way through. Let's not try to go the whole way through, though. You can also try to find another way around the puzzle. We're actually going to go through and try to find another way to hide some of the glyphs that will set off traps. So Kalisha called out the symbols on the pillars, so we're going to look at the pillars. And looking at the pillars, we find that there's a brazier on the top of them, and we can use our flint and tinders or our torches to light them. So as we light them up, it's affecting the symbols in the other room. But again, each time we're interacting, we're losing one of our flint and tinders. So now, once we get down here, we're out of flint and tinders. We have to start using our torches. So each one of these is progressively turning off more of the symbols and helping us. So if we only make it part of the way through and can't light all of them, we still have some hints on how to make it through the puzzle. But we're also going to continue exploring because there's more stuff to explore in the other side of the dungeon.
And is there sort of one puzzle per dungeon, or are there multiple ones?
It just depends. It depends on the feeling of the dungeon. Sometimes we have more puzzles. Sometimes we have fewer. Something like a cave network typically won't have puzzles. Something that's more of a ruins often will have more puzzles. This little guy here is a little black ooze. Brandon actually managed to knock it down for a little bit, so it was not really reacting. And then we have this guy up here. The big thing with the oozes is that they have a pretty damaging corrosion effect, and they can also call interrupts very easily. An interrupt is when your action gets stopped and you play a hit reaction.
So you essentially lose a turn that round.
Yeah, you lose your action. You have to reset. So you see this muck covering this face on the wall, and we can use our water skin to wash the face off. And then the gem we found on the corpse earlier, we can put in the eye socket. And that reveals a hidden door in the wall. Gotta have hidden doors.
Yeah.
Of course.
So there's another little ooze inside.
Now, how big is this game compared to, say, like Baldur's Gate or something like that?
So compared to Icewind Dale, Icewind Dale had 80 maps. Baldur's Gate 2 had about 200 maps, maybe a little over 200 maps. This game has about 140, 150 maps.
So it's pretty sizable.
No, it's a very big game, yeah. We wanted to make sure that it felt like a worthy successor to the Infinity Engine games. So inside the secret door, we found a minor cloak of protection here. Everybody loves cloaks. Our backers really love cloaks.
They're awesome.
Yeah, so we're going to put that bad boy on. It gives us a little minor defensive boost, which is great for a barbarian who typically does not have great defenses.
I'm loving the detail of the floor right there, by the way.
Floors are big in these games. What we found when we worked on the Icewind Dale games is that you can get the most detail out of the floor because it's an isometric game.
Right.
So much detail goes into it, it really pays off to put a lot of elaborate little cool things in it. So now, between what Hayden scouted out on the floor and the torches, or the braziers that we lit in the other room, we can see a path through. So now we can just lead our guys right through the path. And of course, we have to show what happens when you.
What you need? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't.
Please. I have now I got to know what happens if you don't.
If you don't, well, if you don't, then holy cow! Don't have Kalisha do it. She's really wounded.
By all means.
Oh, you just disarmed it?
Oh,
yeah.
that
so
hurt.
now, wow, Kalisha and Heoden are both very badly wounded. So yeah, I mean, even in the starter dungeon, those characters can die. You're not guaranteed to make it out with them alive. So
right. So again, going back to the importance of strategy and keeping an eye on your
yeah. So
health.
now, in this case, we have the barbarian moving forward while the other two kind of hang back, at least initially, because we don't want them to lose any more of their health. So they're occupied with the barbarian, and now we've taken care of them. So now we're going to, this is going to be dangerous for Kalisha. So she's going to draw these spiders forward, and then we're going to use one more wild sprint to have the barbarian rush around and take on the big mama. And he's also going to frenzy. Hopefully he can make short work of him.
Come on, barbarian dude. Yeah!
So those short bursts, if you time them well, you can very quickly take the enemy out, but they're limited use and they have very short duration. So now we made our way out of the dungeon, and hopefully everything's cool outside.
Hope so.
Not quite so much.
Oh, that looks really bad. That looks really bad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's pretty bad. It's not good. All right, so what is going on here?
You'll have to wait and find out.
I'll have to find out. Now the suspense is killing me. I gotta know.
Yep. So there you go. That's the first few areas of Pillars of Eternity and the character creation that we've been working on for a while.
All right. That's fantastic. Now, when can we expect the game to come out? Because I know people are anxious to get their hands on Pillars
so we're
of
going to have our
Eternity.
backer beta next month on August 18th. So the backers will be able to get their hands on the game. And then the full release is expected for winter of this year.
Oh, very exciting. Cannot wait to play Pillars of Eternity. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming in. To the audience listening and watching this, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to go to the comment section below and let Josh know what you thought of Pillars of Eternity. So thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you later. Keep it locked here to IGN.